Welcome to my channel Limelight Leaks. Please share and subscribe, and hit the bell icon for latest updates. Most people know Jesse James as the guy who builds cool motorcycles. He's like a rebel who makes machines and breaks rules. He was on TV shows like Monster Garage and had a shop called West Coast Choppers. He built his fame by doing crazy things with bikes and cars. But there was always one place that stayed secret. His private garage. Not the ones you saw on TV, but a special place where no cameras could go. This spot was the talk of all his workers. They would whisper about it, but never say much. Then one day, someone had to check what was inside for business reasons. Maybe for insurance or money stuff. When they finally opened it up, what they found was not normal at all. At first, it looked like any other garage where Jesse worked. There were dirty floors, welding tools everywhere, and car parts stacked up high. But when they looked deeper past all the tools and covers, things got weird. There were motorcycles too crazy to ride safely, muscle cars that could never be legal, and stuff that made people very worried. A person who used to work there said it was like a mad scientist lab mixed with a place where outlaws hide things. This wasn't just a regular workshop. It was like a secret vault locked up tight with heavy doors and lots of silence. There were no pictures of what was stored inside. No papers saying what was there. One person who knew said, "You never talked about that part of the shop. You just didn't." That silence was finally broken. And when they found all the stuff, even Jesse's closest friends were shocked. Because inside this garage wasn't just metal and machines. It showed who Jesse really was. Raw, honest, and maybe even scary. Everyone knew Jesse James built extreme bikes, but the ones in his private garage were totally different. These weren't the shiny bikes you saw on his TV shows. These were almost illegal, wild, and clearly not made for normal streets. One bike sat in the corner with no serial number, which breaks federal rules. Another one had a custom frame with brass knuckles welded right into the back. It was part weapon, part art piece. Another bike's gas tank looked like a gun cylinder. Each part of it held fuel. Many had no brake lights, no mirrors, and parts that wouldn't pass safety tests in any state. These weren't mistakes. They were done on purpose to rebel against rules Jesse thought were stupid. People say one motorcycle was built just to outrun police cars. It had special gears and a nitro system that could beat most race cars. One old worker whispered, that thing wasn't street legal. It wasn't even earth legal. They also found drawings and plans for bikes he never finished. Some had armor plating and secret hiding spots. Jesse had kept these away from everyone for years. Maybe they were for private customers, or maybe just for himself. There was no record of these bikes ever being sold or shown to anyone. To some people, they were amazing art. To others, they were proof of wrongdoing. Past the bikes was another part of the garage that was darker and colder, with big fans making noise. This is where Jesse kept his monster cars. These muscle cars were so crazy, they seemed like myths. A twin supercharged 1969 Camaro was the main attraction. People said it made over 1,400 horsepower. The car had no license plates, no title, and changes that would fail pollution tests in every state. Next to it sat a custom Ford GT with an engine that had illegal exhaust parts and hidden turbos. There was also a wide-body Dodge Charger that had military-grade bulletproof panels under its paint. The dashboard had a screen that showed the car had heat vision cameras installed. That's something only police or military should have. Who was Jesse building this for? Himself? A customer? Nobody knew. Maybe the most shocking was a Tesla-powered Lincoln Continental. The car looked normal until you looked under the hood and saw Tesla electric parts awkwardly, but smartly connected to the old car frame. It was like Frankenstein's monster. Silent, deadly, and never talked about outside that garage. Most of these cars had no registration papers, no titles, and no documented history. Some people said they were made for mystery buyers. Others were labeled as off-the-books projects. But the message was clear. Jesse James wasn't just bending design rules. He was fighting the whole system. Then came the part that changed everything. The discovery that got federal agents interested. In a steel gun safe behind the workbench, authorities found a small collection of weapons. Multiple guns, including 2 automatic rifles, a short-barrel shotgun, and what looked like an unregistered silencer. Some of these weapons broke California law completely. One rifle was marked for military use only with no way to trace who owned it. Jesse's love for guns wasn't a secret. He once made a line of custom pistols and even started a gun-making business. But what was found here wasn't part of that business. These were personal weapons, many unregistered, several possibly illegal under federal gun rules. One gun was painted to match one of his motorcycles. Another had a custom grip made from carved bone. But it wasn't just the weapons. It was what they were stored with. They found 3D printed gun parts, files labeled auto conversion, and blueprints that showed how to bypass digital tracking systems on modern rifles. At that point, this wasn't about collecting guns. It was about avoiding laws in ways that would raise serious red flags. While no criminal charges were officially filed, sources close to the situation say federal agents got interested after someone gave them a tip. Whether that investigation went anywhere is still unclear, but the damage to Jesse's reputation and the questions that remained were impossible to ignore. What came next wasn't just shocking, it was disturbing. In a storage cabinet labeled Historical Archives, investigators found a velvet-lined wooden case with multiple pieces of Nazi stuff. Among them, a knife with a swastika carved on it, several World War II patches and medals, and a preserved SS officer badge under glass. For some people, these were artifacts from a dark time in history. For others, finding them in Jesse James' personal collection raised serious questions. This wasn't the first time Jesse's name had been connected to controversy about Nazi imagery. Years earlier, he faced criticism for reportedly owning similar items and making jokes about them during interviews. At the time, Jesse claimed he was simply a collector of military history, not someone who supported Nazis. "It's part of history," he once said. "You don't erase history just because it makes you uncomfortable." Still, many fans and critics weren't buying that explanation. Finding these items, especially in a hidden part of the garage, brought back old arguments. Was this really about preserving history? Or was it proof of a darker interest? Making things worse, a folder nearby had letters with known military collectors, some of whom had controversial reputations themselves. Whether Jesse meant for the items to stay private or simply didn't care who saw them, it looked really bad. Very bad. And when the public judges you, context doesn't always save you. The scandal spread across online forums and tabloid headlines, forcing Jesse's team to stay quiet. No official statement was released, and that silence only made people talk more. Tucked between dusty file boxes and spare car parts was something nobody expected. A sealed envelope labeled photo evidence. Private. Inside were dozens of never-before-seen photographs from Jesse's early career. Some innocent, others not so much. Among them, Jesse with various celebrities from the early 2000s, including musicians, actors, and pro athletes. Many were taken at what looked like exclusive, possibly illegal street races. One photo showed Jesse in full biker gear, sliding around a corner, with police cars visible in the distance. No clear explanation was given. Another picture showed what appeared to be a private garage meetup, with outlaw motorcycle gang patches clearly visible on people's jackets. Jesse's expression in these photos ranged from happily chaotic to coldly focused. One particularly unsettling image showed a heavily modified motorcycle parked outside what looked like a rundown motel, with a shotgun clearly visible in the background. Then came the photo album, labeled SB, Legal Hold. Inside were intimate pictures of Jesse and Sandra Bullock during their marriage, backstage moments, private trips, and handwritten captions. The final pages had large black X's across them with the word void written in red ink. No one knew if this was part of the fallout from their divorce, but the emotional weight was clear. The story hidden in these photos wasn't just about machines. It was about a life lived recklessly, relationships formed and lost, and a man who was clearly fighting demons, both public and private. Each image felt like a window into a version of Jesse James that fans never truly knew. And maybe he didn't want them to. In the back corner of the garage, behind a pile of old fuel tanks and toolboxes, was a safe no one had been able to open in years. It was thick, fireproof, and bolted to the concrete floor. But what made it special was the warning taped across the front. Do not open. Legal. According to insiders, this was rumored to be part of Jesse's high-profile divorce from actress Sandra Bullock. Some people thought it held documents and personal materials sealed under a privacy agreement. Others believed it had more than just paperwork, possibly recordings, signed letters, or even money tied to the split. After several tries, and with legal observers present, the safe was finally opened. Inside was a collection of sealed envelopes, each labeled with code names. Some referenced lawyers, others referenced business deals from the West Coast Choppers' glory days. The most interesting was a thick manila folder labeled SB Settlement Personal Copy. Though no one officially revealed what it contained, sources suggested outlined agreements that went far beyond public knowledge, possibly involving asset transfers, privacy clauses, or even creative rights tied to Jesse's brand. More bizarre was a small jewelry box inside the safe, empty except for a sticky note reading, "It never fit." Was it a wedding ring, a metaphor, or both? Whether Sandra Bullock knew the full extent of what Jesse kept in that vault is unclear. But what's certain is this. Whatever happened between them, Jesse kept the emotional remains locked away like a scar he didn't want to reopen but couldn't quite throw out either. Just when the crew thought they'd cataloged the last of Jesse's outlaw toys, they found a section of the garage marked R&D. There was a laminated sign that simply read, "Authorized entry only. Violators will be shot. Survivors shot again." Behind this door was a mad scientist playground. Prototype engines, experimental frame jigs, and bizarre tools no one could quite identify. One shelf held 3D printed gun components, some of which pushed the limits of legality, especially under strict California weapon regulations. A titanium gas tank prototype sat next to what looked like a modified drone frame with mounts suspiciously shaped to hold something heavier than a camera. And then came the real bombshell, a nitrous oxide controller with a handwritten label banned in 3 states. Too damn fast. When tested, it reportedly activated a dual-stage boost system capable of dumping over 500 horsepower instantly into a build. Was it street legal? Absolutely not. Did that stop Jesse from engineering it? Not a chance. Nearby, someone found a folder titled Trident System. Inside were technical drawings for what appeared to be a 3-turbo setup on a hybrid gas-electric engine. Nobody had seen these plans before, not even employees who worked with Jesse for years. It was clear he had been playing with ideas well ahead of their time, but kept them close to his chest, either to avoid copycats or because they were too dangerous. What emerged wasn't just a builder's garage. It was a laboratory of rebellion. Jesse James hadn't just built machines. He engineered defiance, one spark at a time. As news of the findings began to spread, fans waited for Jesse's reaction. Would he issue a press release, deny everything, offer clarity? Instead, he did something very Jesse-like. He posted a single photo on his now private social media account. A grainy black and white image of his garage door barely cracked open with a shaft of light spilling out. The caption read, "Some things are better left in the shadows." That was it. No denials, no confirmations, just a mysterious message that made people talk even more. Was it his way of saying it was all true, or was it a challenge to keep guessing? Longtime followers of Jesse weren't surprised. He had always walked the line between being open and mysterious. In interviews, he enjoyed mystery, often letting his silence speak louder than any defense. This wasn't just a man protecting his privacy. It was a craftsman who understood the power of perception. The public's reaction split in two. Some fans applauded his unapologetic approach. He's always been real. Why change now? Others saw the silence as an admission that the rumors were real and that he was hiding things he knew would never look good in the light. Regardless, Jesse's message was clear. You can open the vault, but that doesn't mean you'll get the full story. As the garage was finally cleared out, the dust settled, both literally and figuratively. What was left wasn't just metal, machines, or collectibles. It was a legacy scattered across a concrete floor. To some, Jesse James was the outlawed genius, always building, always breaking the rules. To others, he was a walking contradiction, a man of skill, secrecy, and self-destruction. The items found in his garage painted a portrait far more complex than any reality show ever could. There were moments of brilliance, cutting-edge technology, breathtaking custom builds, and engineering innovations years ahead of the curve. But there were also shadows, hidden weapons, controversial symbols, sealed vaults, and untold stories of emotional wreckage. The garage in many ways was Jesse James himself. Unfiltered, chaotic, brilliant, and dangerous. Each well told a story. Each locked drawer whispered a secret. The biggest question now is what else is still hidden? Rumors already spread that this wasn't his only garage. That somewhere in the desert or deep in Texas, Jesse has another stash, untouched, undiscovered, and filled with the parts of himself he wasn't ready to share. And maybe that's the point. Jesse James never wanted to be clean-cut. He never wanted to be understood. He just wanted to build and to leave behind a legacy too loud to ignore and too raw to polish.